And welcome back to Gorge for another casted game. We're going to have a really fun one here today. And on the south side of the Gorge in blue, we have Funky Tom as the Mongols, who's currently setting up his TC over by the gold. And on the north side, in the pink, we have Howds as the Ayyubids. As I mentioned, we're on Gorge, so this is going to be a really interesting map, especially with the Mongols, because they have lots of possibilities of tower rushing and all that kind of stuff. This matchup, I think, is also very interesting because Ayyubids is very much a timing and power spike civ, because they generally, with their wings, they get a big boost as soon as they receive them, but it doesn't tend to scale particularly like other civs, landmarks and age-ups do. Whereas the Mongols, I always like to think of them as a bit of the chaos civ. They get the freestone from the Uvu, and then they can use it for either powerful upgrades, or for double producing units, or double producing from pastures. And because they can move stuff around as well, it's not as simple as just making a couple of rams and taking out their landmarks. So if we go and have a look at what the scouts are doing, or the Khan in this case, so he's been very aggressive and scouting out those berries, because as the Ayyubids, you know they're definitely going to be on berries and on gold. Missing a couple of sheep potentially there, but being very aggressive and trying to get as many sheep as possible, even though he's missing this. So because he is already out on food at home, he probably needs to get back fairly soon, so maybe that's why he's just going to be scooting around the edges and getting as many as he can. Whereas if we check over with Howds and see what he's doing, so he's also been very aggressive, which is the Ayyubid you can do because you've got the berries, and he seems to have got all of these sheep in this bottom corner, which is going to be really good because we know that the Khan has been up around this top side, so this is really good scouting there from Howds. And now he's going to go over to the other side, which at the moment is completely unscouted, and hopefully nick a load of those sheep as well. So the Gorge, again, I think is also a pretty good map for the Mongols, because if you look at the starting base for Howds over here as the Ayyubids, all of your resources always come in this circle around your home TC. You always have the big wood at the back, and you maybe have a little one to one side, but your golden berries are always exposed. They might be in the back, so they could be where this stone is, but generally they're pretty exposed. And here he's been really unlucky with the forward gold and forward berries. So if Funky Tom does decide to do some tower rushing or be very heavy on the aggro, that's also going to cause some problems. And as we can see from the military, we got a couple of spears coming over, so whether this is a tower rush or a little bit of poking, we'll have to see. And if we go here, there is a villager coming, so as to be expected from the Mongols, that tower rush is going to go up. But it seems fairly late, 3 minutes, so maybe it's a slightly delayed tower rush. I guess ideally you'd want to deny these resources as early as you possibly can. But the age up is coming through, and we're going for the advancement. Interesting. So this is a quicker age up, and it costs slightly less. So I've not really seen this much in Feudal, because there tends to be either the reinforcements or even the villagers. I've seen quite a lot, so I'm sure there must be an interesting play, the reason he wants to get up to that next stage that little bit faster and that little bit cheaper. Maybe he's expecting some heavy aggression and going to counterbalance that. So 330 age up, and then the archery range is going straight down. So here we go, we're going to get rid of these spears quick sharp, and this tower is in a pretty good position. If we switch over, we can see the radius, so it should just maybe get the gold and the berries, but I don't know whether it's going to really deny them, because you could just go from the other side. And the berries, again, too far to get these ones, so it's you know, maybe not going to do so much, but maybe it's the first of many towers, as the Mongols tend to do. If I were Howds, I might even consider moving over and grabbing some of the berries off these patches here, and then once the tower goes up, shifting over. But if we have a look at his vision, he doesn't actually see the tower going up yet, which is not ideal for him. So his scout really needs to drop all those sheep off, because look at all those sheep, but also needs to be watching what these are doing, because if the spears are at the front, there's usually a villager somewhere making a tower. And if we go back over, we've got the deer stones coming through, so no trade on this one. This map's always a bit weird for trade, because the trade posts spawn along the two sides, but like here, they're really close to both of the bases in this one. Sometimes they're a lot more central, so he could go for it, but then it's super exposed across the whole map. So deer stones kind of make sense, and it gives you that YAM network for the increased movement speed, which is going to be really nice. So if we head back over, here we go, we've got the 5 spears in here, which is just shooting a couple of archers down, and also hitting the House of Wisdom, which isn't doing a huge amount of damage. And those spears are just just chilling now, just having a rest and shooting as much as they can. The archers are really good because they can deny the towers going up, but they're not going to be able to burn it down. So either he's going to need to go into a ram, which as the Ayyubids you get that tech for free, you don't need siege engineering like you do as other civilizations. So he could just pop a ram now, burn this tower down, and then the Mongols' first push is really not going to do much. But as we mentioned, there's more outposts going to be coming down, so this is really the thing you've got to worry about, is if they get towers all around your starting resources and they start dropping them all around your base, then you're really restricted in terms of movement. But at the moment it's just the 5 spears and they're not really going out and doing anything. But we can see that we've got the arrow slits coming in now for Funky Tom on this forward tower, so that means then those spears can jump out and it will still carry on shooting. So there we go. So that looks like Howls has dropped off all those sheep, all that nice food there, so we can see he's got 15 plus the ones he's gathering on, so he's definitely got the lion's share of all of the sheep. And Funky Tom is now in Feudal, and he's dropping down, interesting, so dropping down the stables, he's also already got his barracks for the double production of infantry, so I imagine we're going to be seeing some Keshiks or some Mangadai coming down to put some pressure on. And as I mentioned there, the archers are dropping this ram, and that means as soon as they jump out to try and attack the ram, the archers are going to be able to take them out. Even with the arrow slits, Howls should come off on top of this one. But there is another tower now, another outpost with those arrow slits, so this is going to start being a bit of a pain. But it looks like the villagers going home, so only the 2 towers on that gold, which on this map is not maybe that much of a threat really, because you can just move out onto the sides. Like there's a big gold on the right side here, on the left side there's a little one as well, so if I were Howls I wouldn't be too worried, but taking down these towers just to stop any problems is good. And here we go, a bit of clown car action. All of the archers going inside because they can't take damage, and then they want to be shooting down these spears, so both of them jumping in and out of their defensive structures there, trying to take as little damage as possible. So there we go, so that's now burning, so that's going to be down in a second. And the villager came back, which is very strange. I wasn't expecting, if you pull the villager back, maybe he wasn't pulled back, maybe he gathered the wood there, he gathered the 10 wood, and there wasn't a gather point, so he started running home to drop it at the TC or a Gur. That is unfortunate, because really if the villager's up there, you really don't want him running halfway across the map to come back again, so that's why those towers have gone down. And now that's burning, that's going to slowly go down no matter what happens. So these other rams probably not really necessary, but maybe he doesn't know how many towers are up, so it's just as a precaution. But that's a lot of wood that's been invested in these battering rams, which really we don't need at this stage. But we do see some Keshiks going down, so hopefully, here we go, Howls is checking that out now, so he should see the range, the stables and the barracks. And I just love these buildings, they always look so cool, and it's always nice. Now I have a computer that can actually show the graphics. Just the design on this game is just incredible, I absolutely love it. So we've got Keshiks coming in, we've also got the Khan and those units, so at the moment Howls' military is looking pretty strong, but whether he's going to push out with these rams or just kind of sit at home and see what's happening, that's really the idea. I think it looks like the Khan's just chilling up the top, not sure exactly what he's scouting up there, but maybe he just had a nice view and decided to take a little drink. So now we've got the 2 rams and we've got these 9 archers. Most of them survive pretty well, which is good, and we don't have any upgrades through yet because we're not gathering any gold, so hopefully Howls is going to shift some of these wood guys over to gold and start getting some of these upgrades. But here we go, we've got the rams moving over very slowly like a Trojan horse, but unfortunately the spears aren't anywhere in sight, so these Keshiks are going to be able to take these down, and really that's a lot of investment to lose this early. So I'm not sure if the spears, yeah, they're just chilling at home defending against the Keshiks, but this is really not ideal because those Keshiks are also going to take out all of these archers if Howls isn't careful. So that's a big loss in terms of value there, especially as with the Mongols they can just pick up their buildings and move as well. It's very difficult to do a ram push. So once those towers at home were done, you really want to be investing in more units, because here one spear is really not going to do much. And okay, this is pretty clever, this is good. Although he will potentially lose the ram, he's got time to build up some spears at home, and this is going to protect all of his archers because these Keshiks would literally just shred through them in a matter of seconds. And we can see the units building up at home ready to defend. And if we go back over to Oh, just about. So 50 health there has survived. So you really want to jump those archers out so you've got all of your army. It's something everyone tells me whenever they see my games is making sure you keep your army together so you don't take a bad fight with one spear against all of these Keshiks, because that's where you can really take some heavy damage, especially very early on. As we can see here, we've got the production buildings and there's some units just sitting chilling, just having a good time, just watching what's going on. So if we switch over to Funky Tom, if we have a look at his rally points, they are set, so maybe these came out before he managed to set those, but that's definitely something to be careful of. If you don't set your rally points, they're going to chill there, and unless you're using like the select or military key, which I know we shouldn't be doing, they're going to sit there forever, and you know, none of us have ever been guilty of that, I know for sure. We can see Howds is now up at the top with an outpost on the gold, not upgraded, no arrow slits or the fortifications, but this is going to mean that he's going to be able to get up to castle eventually or get his upgrades, because he's got the melee upgrade, and with all those archers he should probably be getting the range damage soon, because that's really then going to make the most of it. He's also got a Desert Raider coming out, which is a really nice little addition, because the Keshiks don't do bonus damage against them, because the Keshiks are knights, so they don't do bonus damage against range units, they just have a very strong attack, and the camel will debuff the Keshiks, so actually having one of them there to take an engagement against the Keshiks is really good. And more rams coming out now, so I'm not sure exactly what the plan is for Howds, but I am liking the clown card jumping in and out kind of gameplay. This is definitely up my street. If he can really figure out how to do that efficiently so he can jump in and out, I think this is going to be really fun engagements. So we see the Keshiks and the Khan now have been pulled by that archer, which is nice, and they've spotted out these rams, but look how quickly they take damage. That's really not what you want to be doing. But the camels here going to be debuffing the Keshiks, the archers just peppering them with those arrows, not doing a huge amount of damage each shot, but you can see here that reduced damage is definitely going to really help Howds here. But he definitely should be getting his increased arrow damage with all of these archers, and that's really going to make a huge difference against the Mongol mass of archers here. He's also getting the phalanx, which is the increased attack range for the spears, which really helps, but this is not ideal. Taking all that damage with your spears, you want to keep them away and keep your spears on the Keshiks. And then if I were Howds, what I would be doing is target firing against these archers, because they're the things that are taking out your spears, and once your spears are gone, you're just going to be taking such heavy damage from these Keshiks, because they really do pack a punch. And the Mongol player really should be focusing on the camels, because the camels and the spears, because the camels are debuffing the Keshiks. So once you get rid of those camels, which are weak against range, that will then mean your Keshiks are doing more damage, and it's working. But I said before that the Mongol player can move, but the Khan's down and these buildings are getting rammed, so whether he's forgotten to move them or he's just decided he's going to move them a little later, so there we go, that's one of them saved. But even while they're moving, it means they're not producing, so this military difference is just going to increase and increase. We've got a couple of defensive outposts at home, so he can jump in and push away, and more rams coming down now. It's really Ramapalooza these days. And here we go, all of the villagers out on villager pull there, trying to burn them all down, and in comes the camel to say hello. So this is loads of fire, loads of action. I love to see it. And having the Yam network here is actually really helping, because the cavalry gets a bonus, but unfortunately all that cavalry is down for the time being, just like that camel that we saw bite the dust. And unfortunately these rams have pushed forward a little bit too far, and they don't have the reinforcements to back them up. So although he might Howds is going to get a couple of villager kills, he's got 3 so far, I'm not sure whether losing this 200 wood for these rams is really worth it. And the Uvu's depleted, but I guess you couldn't take it out, and that's again losing resources, because I guess this is the idea of doing this. You're not necessarily going for the landmarks, but you are going to be doing damage, and meaning that they're losing those resources. But if we check on Funky Tom's plan, if we see it's looking very close to a castle age, so Howds is going to have to be really careful, because if all those armoured unit comes out and you've only got archers and spears, you're going to be in real trouble, and those rams are definitely not going to help save the day. But looking at the macro here of the numbers back at home, it looks like Howds is also working his way towards castle, so maybe a similar time. But if you see here, look at the health on that Keshik. It's just literally sitting there and taking all that archer fire. It's only when the spears came over that it's really starting to take any damage, and these rams are just getting destroyed by it. So that's where he really needs these spears. But look at all these towers, the TC, the towers, they're all firing on these spearmen here. So that's really not an ideal situation, and his units now are just starting to go down, and Funky Tom's starting to make up that difference with that defender's advantage. And if you hear people talking about defender's advantage, that's obviously where your production is at home, and so when someone's attacking you, your units come out and they can instantly get engaged in the fight. Whereas if we look at Howd's, he's got to come all the way across the map, like these reinforcements now are running over, so that's slower and it takes extra time for them to come over and actually engage in the fight. So that's why when you're at home, you want to protect your production so you can keep pumping out those units and do a little pushback like we can see here with the Keshiks. And again, now we're back down to one ram, and this ram I definitely think is not going to make it home, and all these archers unfortunately I think maybe are going to bite the dust. So what we do, we got 2 spears, nice little catch there on that Keshik, but unfortunately the Keshik managed to run away from the spears, they targeted it down, and so now the Keshik is having a field day, and he's really getting those military credits there for the Khan. And that's the engagement cleaned up, and really, although the numbers look fairly equal, having the Keshiks on this side, I think that's really going to make a big difference, because he's much more mobile and can really pack a punch with this extra damage. The 15 damage they're doing per hit, it doesn't really matter that they're not getting the bonus against all of those archers. If we go back over to Howd's, he's got another ram coming in. Honestly, this guy loves the rams. So I'm not sure whether it's the idea that these are more of a protective structure, but I do think it's a lot of resources to spend, especially this early in the game, if they're not actually going to be doing damage, because so far we've seen that they've all been taken out by the Keshik. So if I were Howd's, I'd probably rather have a load more spears or archers, but, you know, that's just me. But if we go back over to Funky Tom, he's out here gathering on the ball, getting all of that good food. He's also got a relic by this outpost, which is going to secure that nicely, but the Kurultai is going up here. There we go. So the Kurultai gives you the healing aura, and it gives you the extra damage. So you'll often see this taken when they do a big push on your base. They'll move the Kurultai forward, and then they will start attacking when they've got that healing aura, which makes it even more difficult for you to take that engagement as well. So you've got to be really careful when this guy starts rolling forward. Literally the second it's produced, I think you're about to get some heavy engagements, and it's not really ideal. But at the moment, looks like it's moving into a more defensive position to give the healing aura on his base. Now, these production buildings around the Uvu, but the Uvu is depleted, so that stone isn't going to be going up. So really, we want to be moving that stone over to the big stone over here, or somewhere else, so that you can be getting that that improved production. And there we go, the Uvu is gone. And here, the Keshiks have caught all of these villagers on the deer, and now they're starting to really knock up some of these kills. So that's 3 so far, and although the villager kills are very similar, Howd's has been really good at keeping up that villager production. And he's also gone to castle, and if we check it out, he went for eco, and he must have gone for the 8 extra villagers, because suddenly there's 8 here over on the gold right next to the House of Wisdom, and that villager count has just spiked. So if we remove those, he'd be on 52 against 47, so generally it's still in a pretty good position. And now we're both in castle, we're going to be seeing these armoured units. Funky Tom's going into the crossbows, and Howd's is going into archers, crossbows, horsemen, camels, spears, gulam, a little bit of everything. You know, when you're not sure exactly what comp to go for, get a bit of everything, and I'm sure it will do the trick. We've still got the ram as well. He's just chilling out at the front, you know, ready for everyone to jump in and, you know, avoid some of that Keshik Keshik fire from their very powerful swords. And up here, we're collecting some berries with a little mini wall on the on this side, I guess, to prevent it, and a tower on that side. So that's quite nice. Also, some little small walls going up here to stop any of those pushes from here. Maybe a little wall here would actually sort of block off that whole side, and there we go, we can see full walls coming all the way around, but not actually guarding the base, only this sort of back corner. So I'm not sure whether that's more of a retreating position in case of engagements, but you might also want to protect this a little. But this little wall here and the outpost is actually really nice, because unless you chop through, they're going to have to come right under the TC fire and the outpost. So I quite like this setup. And we can see there's a mosque here, and so some dervishes should be coming out to get some relics in a second. Funky Tom on the other side is just massing up quite nicely, arranging all of his units in nice little battalions around the Kurultai, because he knows we like to see a nice screenshot here, and then building some siege as well. So I think this is looking really nice, and the Kurultai is slowly moving forward so that he can slowly push. But if we look at the pink wave that's coming of a mixture, the Tex-Mex platter of Ayyubid units moving across, of a bit of everything, it's hopefully we're going to see whether this mixture of units or the really more focused selection from the Mongols is going to do more damage. We can also see here that Hauser's got a load of food, so it looks like he's going to be going into some of these food heavy units like the horses and stuff like that, so we can see those going up. With the amount we've got in queue, it looks like there's the right amount of production, whereas it looks like Funky Tom could do with a couple more barracks if he's got 9 men-at-arms in queue, because most of the time you don't want to have loads of units in queue, because that's resources that have been spent, but you're not actually getting the benefit from them. But we're going to have to be really careful of this mangonel now, because Hauser doesn't have any siege apart from the ram, but we're just going to ignore the ram because he's going to be biting the dust in a second. But so he's going to have to be really careful, because there's not many fast units that are going to be able to take on this mangonel. So if we're going for the action, here we go. House is retreating and kiting with all of his units. If he could have his archers separate, the spears would be able to run away and the archers could do some damage, but he's keeping far enough away from this mangonel to stop any heavy attacks. And if we go back over, we can see the Keshiks running all the way over here, so they're going to hopefully try and get some damage in. But unfortunately, there's defensive units at the base which are going to catch them out, and there's a mangonel there for Hauser as well, which, oh, really nice shot on the Keshiks. And we can also see an alert up here, so that's a cheeky little wolf that almost got the villager, but not quite. But we see a couple of markets going up, so it does look like trade is going to be happening very soon. And Hauser is also moving in and trying to flank, so it looks like he might be going for a two-pronged attack with the units from his base moving over and these units on the top side. And more rams. It's honestly, I think this is maybe the new Ayyubid strategy. I'm not quite sure, but you know, when one ram doesn't work, make 2, and when 2 doesn't work, make 20, and just keep pumping those rams. It seems to be doing the trick at the moment, but we'll have to see whether it can pull off the win. And a couple of these horsemen and camels have gone and attacked these veteran Keshiks, and they're really bringing them back. But this is not going to be ideal if they do find these rams and stuff being built, because they'll be able to do some heavy damage. So really, these units want to be coming in and protecting these horses, because you don't want to just lose all those army that's doing the raiding. We can also see that Funky Tom is out here on the exposed gold, so a lot of this stuff is very raidable if Hauser can get some raiding units. He's only got a couple of horses, but they might be able to go out and do the trick. So all of his units here massing up at home, and he's got 1 relic in the bag so far, which is probably this home one up in the corner. So if I were Hauser, I would have gone for the relics that are a bit further out, especially the one right next to where you've got loads of units, and then the one that's safe at home you could get last, because, you know, it's already safe, you've already walled in the whole thing. So, or almost, we've got a little opening here, but that's fine. But unfortunately, the Keshiks have found those rams, so that sneaky ram attack is going to be caught out, so you're probably going to see all of the military moving over now to take it. So hopefully, if Hauser can get all of these units from home pushing across, he's going to be able to take a really good engagement. If it's only this small force with these rams, I think he's going to lose the rams again and these units over here. So he's splitting them up this way is really weakening him, because he's got all of these units up here, and it's very uneven now if you compare it with the entire Mongol force that's at home. So not sure what the rams are going to attack. There were 3. No, that's just a villager gathering some wood in the corner, obviously. The first ram literally has just been completely eaten by all of the men-at-arms and the other units there, and there's now a Springle and a mangonel and more Springles coming up, so they're expecting some siege. And there's just a little ram here, just, you know, chilling and hiding, hoping to do some damage. And finally, Hauser's units are coming over. Now, you'll notice they're all walking really slowly. if they're all grouped together and you select them with the siege, they will always move at the speed of the slowest unit. So although you want to make sure you protect your siege, you probably don't want to move all of your units like this, because your horses and camels could be off doing something else. So maybe leaving your infantry with the siege so that it can be protected, but sending your horses and camels off to do a bit of raiding like on the Uvu or on this gold up in the top corner would work. If we have a look, we have 2 markets but no traders just yet, so a bit of a slow trade start, but he found the Uvu and the production, but that dervish is gonna get taken out. They found him, but he's got the healing, and so those Keshiks are gone. And we can see now there's a building moving over, the Kurultai's moving across again, and I think all of these units are going to slowly move over now when they finish building up all of this siege. And so here we go, we've got a long stream of pink units coming across here now, and they're taking out all of these things around the Uvu, so that means that bonus stone isn't really going to be able to do anything for Funky Tom. And a Khan has just arisen, so now we are going to see a full engagement, I think, and there's a mangonel here, but it's quite unprotected, so if he doesn't watch out, these men-at-arms are just going to swarm it and take that out very, very quickly. And unfortunately, that looks like what's going to happen, because those siege do take a lot of damage and they go down very, very quickly if they're not protected. And although we're building some more, there's some mangonels for Funky Tom now, which are really starting to punch in, and the Springles also do quite a lot of damage, although they are mainly focused on the siege. Now, this Mangonel, if he could go and get a really good hit on these archers, that's going to do some super heavy damage. But Howls is doing the right thing here, moving out of range of the Mangonel, so has to keep resetting up and can't get a punch. And now he's pulled these men-at-arms so he can focus all these units down. So I think this is working really well for him. And if we have a look at the military count now, Howls is on 70 and Funky Tom's on 35, soon to be, and all of these units are also going down. But again, they might even get this Mangonel before it gets a chance, and oh, that's such a shame. The Springles and the men-at-arms, they're doing that. So although he has the advantage here, these units are still really strong, and all of his armoured units are getting countered by all of these crossbows. 19 crossbows. So really we want to see a load of horsemen coming in for Howls. And Funky Tom is floating a load of food, but oh, Howl's brilliant raiding here. 48 kills so far. He's literally, while that big engagement's been going on and we've all been distracted at the top, these spears and archers have literally gone and cleaned up the whole economy on the back line. Nearly 50 villager kills now. So this engagement at the front, which we all thought was decisive, that was going to be taking the game, and all the rams earlier, it's really this cheeky little raid on the backside with more rams coming up that's really going to be ending this game, because 20 villagers against 80 now, even with all this economy. He might be able to get Imperial, but then what? This is a really bad state for Funky Tom now, with all of those villagers going down. And Howls is then going back to defend, which I think is probably a good move. So he's done a huge amount of damage, got all of these villagers down, and all these sheep are going down now to find no one at home to gather them from. All those monsters that eat the sheep. And here we go, we've got a villager here who might have spotted out these rams, but I'm not sure what the rams are going to be doing at the moment, whether they're going to be just taking out the pastures, because, you know, we just don't want them to have any more sheep. And we've got a couple of units here guarding a relic which looks like it's already been picked up. Howls has already got 3, and Funky Tom has got 1 on the way, and there's only this one on the bottom side now waiting to be picked up. So hopefully a dervish or a monk go over and grab that in a second, because that's some really nice gold. If we head over to the income per minute now, if you see the difference now with all those villagers gone down, there's basically no food a minute, no wood a minute, and just gold. And here we've got a really strong economy for Howls. So I think this game, that raiding on the backside has really turned the tide, and so I think we're just going to have to wait and see for the final nail in the coffin for Funky Tom, unfortunately. But you never know, with the Mongols they can pull off some crazy stuff, so we'll just have to see how we get on. We're out on these exposed resources gathering lots and lots of wood, so probably for all these rams that he's building, and he's been found again. Oh no, this is such a shame. I do think if you're going to be trying to build all the sneaky rams, probably not the best idea to build them in the same place over and over. Probably building them in different places might end up doing more damage, but all of these range units are basically doing nothing against them. So actually, surprisingly, the decoy ram here is actually going to be doing a lot, but the archers should really be over here stopping the villagers getting the snipe on these rams. Although you're killing the pastures, it's not really doing a huge amount at this stage. So you know, you can go for the TC, but I don't think these men-at-arms are going to allow that to happen. We've still got all the villagers up here on gold, and now that's almost a third of his economy. So if a couple of units can raid up here like these archers, then he's going to be in real trouble. There's a couple of horses getting even more villager kills, up to 50 now, and we've got the camel lancers, which are the knights, are just going and doing some crazy damage. So 53, and the archers are sitting just outside this gold mine, ready to finish off the economy. And if we head over to Howd's base, even more siege. And in this case, I think building the siege here is maybe a bit of a mistake because it's such a long walk over the centre. Because they move so slowly, it might be better to actually move to the sacred site in the centre and then do it from here, because you've got the map control. You've got the position, you're out raiding and getting all of these units and putting pressure on everywhere around all of these different resources that are exposed. You could be out in the centre, and then it's only a tiny little push into the Kurultai. You don't really want to take a fight in the Kurultai, but if he pushed up onto this gold, then Funky Tom would have to respond, otherwise he basically has no resources whatsoever. Also, we got a couple of traders going in, but they've been found by the Camel Lancers, and they just keep getting taken out, unfortunately. So we've got 3 traders so far, and these ones don't look like they're rallied up, so it's so they're just sitting there waiting to be used. But the dervish going and getting the sacred site now, so this is a really good thing to do once you've got all of your relics, is grabbing those sacred sites, because again, it's another reason to force them out. Maybe you're not going for the sacred site win, but you can force your opponent to react because they have to stop the timer. So either they have to send units to the top or to one of these other ones. And it looks like it may be forcing a response, because these Springles may be going up to meet the dervish, but we'll have to wait and see. And now everyone's just massing up, so 55 to 67 at the moment. The dervish finished off, and then he's heading off to the bottom sacred site. It also means it's increased gold income for Howd, so both ways this is really good. And there we go, if you see, the timer's gone off, and so Funky Tom's having to move forward to try and decap that. And really, he should be sending some units up to the top one as well to decap it, to stop those resources, because that's going to be just boosting his economy even further. And if we go up to the top, there's a couple of Gulams up here, and it's they're doing a significant amount of damage. Although there's the crossbows, Howd has lots of these upgrades, and he has the ranged armor, so he's still getting to do some really nice damage and distracting these units at the top. And it looks like we're coming in for what could be the final fight, and Ram's at the front, you know, the vanguard of the army, the Ram in this case. And we've got a load of spears coming over to take on the men-at-arms and to stop them, and the Ram's just moving on by, saying, do you know what, I'm not bothered about you guys, I'm just going to go for that landmark and just ignore everything else. But unfortunately, there's nothing to take out these Springles, and the Mangonels are going to get a shot. Relatively good. If Funky Tom needs to be targeting these archers down, because they're the ones that are doing the big damage. So a couple of ground shots over here, but Howd is really good here with 4 Springles against the 2 at the back. So Howd has got the military numbers and the siege advantage, so this is working really well in his favour. And the dervish is up here doing some crazy healing, and in come the final reinforcements, and it's mainly just archers, but it looks like they're doing enough damage, and the Springles just sitting there, but too much for Funky Tom, unfortunately, at this stage. So, and if we a really good win there for Howd's, with a significant amount of Rams that I haven't actually seen before. And before we finish, if I can pause the game, if it will let me, and we're back. So I've just gone back and got the replay to just before the victory screen, so we can pause it and have a little look at the final state of the game. So looking at the relic count here, Howd has 3 and Funky Tom has 1. There's still that 1 relic down in the bottom, which we definitely wanted to grab, and with all these dervishes, Howd could have snuck down there, especially as he had some units and stuff in these bottom corners. But 3 is pretty good going, and for those resources that you get, it's really good. He's also got 2 of the 3 sacred sites, and this one's just been decapped, but he also had that as well, so that's also really, really nice because that's going to be forcing a response. You can also wall them in. Gorge is really nice with these little cliffs. You can actually get some pretty good short walls across the little wood lines to block off some of them, depending. So this one on the top side would be relatively easy. This one on the bottom, not so much because it's more towards Funky Tom's side, but we can see the walling here from Howds. I like the fact that he blocked off this side. I'm not so sure about just blocking off the one corner and leaving the other side completely exposed. The towers are good, but as Funky Tom found to his demise, just having the towers around on the TC doesn't mean the units can't get under here and just get all of your villagers. So a couple of little walls maybe from here, because this looks like that's completely blocked off at the edge. One little wall here, and then maybe even just one straight down to within TC range here. That would just force them to go out and under the TC. But at this stage, with the resources that Howds has, he could actually just sort of chuck a wall straight across the middle and secure that. He'd also then secure the market, so if he wanted to start doing some trading, putting some of these villagers up. And I can see he's putting loads of defensive towers, but I think for the amount of resources that you're spending on those outposts, 100, you could just chuck some walls up and still have a tower just for the vision and stuff like that. But with these towers, you still have to respond. At least the walls would give you a notification as well. If we go back home, he's got a couple of farms, but it's really nice that he's stayed out on these external resources, building some farms out here by the berries, and there's also farms here, so the full farm transition actually has gone in, and that's why we can see so many villagers on wood, because if we look at the split, we've got 40 on wood and none on gold at the moment because he's floating a huge amount of gold, so that's going to do him for his upgrades and all of that stuff. If we look at the upgrades, we can see that he's only got the first level wood, and because of all those villagers gathering on wood, you really want to be getting probably both forestry because it's so cheap, and you want to be getting that lumber preservation because that's really going to boost up that wood income. If we look at the other ones, we've also got the level 2 for horticulture, so that's all good, and we probably want to be getting the range damage because he's gone very heavy into range units here, almost 35 there, so that's me trying to do maths in my head and talk, so hence the slow response. But with that gold that you've got, you really want to be getting your armor upgrades. If we have a look at Funky Tom's side, he lost a huge amount of vills, but he's managed to take out some of these pockets here that Howds had set up with his units, and he's out here gathering some wood at the back, and he's focusing on gathering gold up here and trying to get some trade going. So you can see he's trying to boost up that economy again, as well as all the pastures under the TC. So he'd got really food income if he hadn't lost all of those villagers. But generally, I think this is a really solid position for Howds. I would say that massing up all the units at home at the base is generally can be quite good. Obviously, when you've got some in the pockets over here building rams and then you're at home, once all of those Mongol forces shift over, that can do some heavy damage. So really, if you're going to be doing that, you want to be pulling your reinforcements round there. Otherwise, getting a quarter of your army hit by their whole army does really do some huge damage. I also think potentially the heavy ram play didn't really work out too well. Early on, it did some damage to the to some of the production, but whether it did a lot of damage or it just distracted the units a little bit more, maybe it was more of a diversionary tactic. But for that 200 wood, you could have got loads of other stuff. So I think that potentially, with less rams and more units, you could have ended this game much earlier or done some heavy raiding. I also think the fact that Funky Tom went really heavily into crossbows, with all this food and wood, if we chucked down like 3 or 4 more stables and just pumped out a load of these horsemen, that would have taken out the siege and those crossbows. So I think just seeing the composition there and forcing them to go into ranged because of all of your spears and stuff like that, that could have really swept in with the horses and cleaned them up. But generally, I think a very strong position for Howds, and unfortunately Funky Tom was in quite a good position until he missed that raid on the backside and lost 50 units. And once you lose 50 villagers, I think that's really not the best place to be. So overall, a fantastic game, loads of interesting play, and if you love a ram, then I hope you've loved this video. But enjoy whatever you're doing today, and I'll see you in the next one.